Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to SynthWorld on WSLR LP 96.5 FM Sarasota and WBPV LP 100.1 FM Bradenton. I'm your host, DJ Nomad, and I'm thrilled to be here with indie singer, songwriter, kind of mid 2000s, even maybe parts of the 2010s kind of representation, but still feels retro. Casey, aka Inner Nature. Thanks for being here, man.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you. I haven't been, I feel like, unlike a lot of the artists that I usually have on the show who I've been listening to for years, I've just now stumbled upon your music, I think was either last year, maybe the year before, but not a very long time in terms of how long you've been doing this. I know we were chatting. It sounds like you've been doing this since this, at least this moniker, since about 2014. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, long time. Lots to reflect on, and lots to ask you about. So I appreciate you coming on. I do want to kind of get you on the map for a second here. I know you're in the SAC area of Northern California, not far from where I lived, actually. Although I never actually went to Sacramento. I feel really weird saying that. I only lived in the Bay Area for 2 years, but yeah, I never went over to SAC area. Although I heard it's lovely. So I'm just wondering, are you originally from that area? And why have you found it to be, it seems like you found it to be a hospitable home for your creative endeavors.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Sac. I never left. I love it here. I remember when I was kind of an angsty teenager, I wanted to get out of Sacramento because all my friends were leaving and stuff. But
Mhm.
eventually I stayed just because my family's here and all my friends, and it's just been a great time. Lots of talent comes from Sacramento and tends to leave eventually. But the music scene here is really cool. Lots of variety, lots of metal, surprisingly. Um, but yeah, no, it's been a great spot for me, and I intend to stay here. So
Yeah, I've always heard great things about the Sacramento area. At the time, I was super into disc golf, which I do play quite a bit actually, and I heard there are a lot of good courses in the area. But I did get the sense there was also kind of a decent indie art scene there as well. Although I didn't know about the metal, that is cool. Um,
yeah.
yeah, so you've made this your home. You're originally from there. I'm wondering what, just for people who because I'll get listeners from all over the country on some level. How would you, other than what you've already told us, how would you describe the Sacramento area to someone new?
I would say that it's got a little bit for everybody. You've got like what they call old Sacramento, which is kind of like buildings are kind of the same from how they've been like 50 years ago, that kind of thing.
Mm.
Real touristy spot. You've also got like something called the Rose Garden, where it's like this beautiful garden full of roses and all sorts of other floral stuff. And the cool thing about Sacramento was it's kind of like a great hub for Northern California. Like 2 hours away, you can go to the ocean. 2 hours away, you've got the mountains. Like you can do anything you want, really. The only thing is it's pretty expensive, but I think you get what you pay for over here.
Yeah, it is a really cool part of California in general. So um, I'm guessing, we talked about how you have a music background. You've been doing music for a long time. So I know you've definitely played quite a few venues in the Bay Area, or like that part, let's say Northern California. So if you had to, I know that may be hard, but what would you say is like your favorite venue to play in that whole area and why?
So for me, my favorite spot that unfortunately is closing at the end of the year is called Bottom of the Hill. And I performed there a couple of years ago. Sorry, my cats are freaking out. Hey, calm down, y'all. Okay, cool. Um, Bottom of the Hill. I played with Brother Tiger a few years ago, and he's like one of my favorite artists of all time. So that was a really, really cool event for me. And I've seen a bunch of cool artists there, and it's kind of a shame to see it go. It's been around for forever, you know.
Ah, oh, it's a bummer. What is it? Is there a specific reason why it's closing? Is it funding, I'm assuming?
Yeah, they just can't afford it. It's a real shame.
Hmm. Bottom of the hill. Is it at the bottom of a hill?
Yes.
Very
As the
cool.
name suggests. Yeah.
Well, for any of our listeners who are, maybe in that area or maybe visiting that area, go to bottom of the hill before it closes. See this awesome venue that Casey's talking about. Yeah, that's sad, but cool little backstory there. Before we kind of dive into your background and then, your work as inner nature, I do want to also just tackle a time period that I think is pretty instrumental in at least for this project, which is going to be like the kind of outbreak of chillwave music, if you will, or the popularity of that, of like the later 2000s and the 2010s. I was in college at the time and young, and I just remember it being so fun. I loved so much of that music. I don't know, can you take me back to that time and what it represents for you, maybe as a person?
Yeah, so I'm 32 now, and actually, when that kind of music came out, I wasn't really listening to it too much. I was still kind of in my like angsty, like screamo age, you know. I was listening to a lot of like Devil Wears Prada and Under Oath and
Mm,
stuff. I didn't start listening to this kind of music until like 2014, 2015, so I was a little bit late,
mhm,
which is a shame. But for me, when I started listening to it, I was really fascinated by just how raw the sound was. Like it was very almost you might almost mistake it for like a demo or something with the quality that it was at. It's very lo-fi, very scratchy, you know, we have a lot of like tape hiss and reverberated vocals. Um, and for me that really caught my attention. I remember listening to Neon Indian's Psychic Chasms for the first time, and I was like, this is not like anything I've ever heard before.
like it was written by the like nerdy kid who's kind of the loner in the classroom.
Oh.
You know what I mean? But it also felt like very emblematic of the time period, the like kind of combination of technology allowing production, I feel like, to get to where it should have always maybe stayed on some level. And then like the like youthful innocence and hopefulness that we should, because I'm 33, so I'm right there with you as a kind of younger millennial. So yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to get your take on that because I feel like if I don't, a lot of times the artists I interview either aren't our age or, if they are, I'm not talking to them about that time period because their music is more about like the 80s or 90s or something like that. So it's nice to throw back to this little time period. So you kind of answered my next question, uh, which is, how you kind of initially fell in love with this music. But actually, I'll kind of broaden it. I mean, do you have memories maybe as a child when you first picked up an instrument or like your parents played a song that really, struck a chord with you?
I've got quite a few. I remember when I was probably 8 or 9, I was at some sort of Thanksgiving dinner with my family, and I had like this crush on this woman that was like very much older than me. I was also 8. Anyway, I had a crush on this woman, and I picked up like this toy guitar that, you know, had little buttons and stuff, and I was like singing a little song for her, and everyone was taking video and stuff. It was very wholesome. And I remember ever since then, I wanted to pursue music a bit more. And my dad, he used to play guitar in bars and stuff when he was in high school. And he was able to teach me a little bit of guitar. And from then on, I kind of just grew into learning different things like piano and drums, bass, and eventually started singing and getting the groove for the sound that I wanted.
Wow, so you play, do you, I'm assuming that means you produce all of the instruments on your albums?
Yep, that's all me.
Wow, that's incredible. The fact that none of that is sourced out or like you're not producing it with like a VST or something. Oh, well, I'm sure you maybe use some VSTs, but yeah, that's wow, really incredible. And it's kind of funny you mentioned that. I don't know what it is, but I had the same thing as a young boy where it was like in love with like a older parent in the neighborhood, or it made no sense whatsoever. I don't know. I guess we'd have to talk to Freud about that, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so now I want to talk about an older retro track that you covered, which is going to be Fleetwood Mac's "Little Lies." So it's kind of throwing back just for a second because I love that. I am planning on playing that amongst a couple of other tracks from you for our this show we're about to do next Monday. So you're kind of sprinkled throughout the set list actually. But yeah, that song specifically, I mean, I love that. Can you speak to why you chose that song to cover? And if there's any other covers you kind of either have waiting in your vault or are excited to maybe try in the future?
Yeah, so for me, that's like easily one of my favorite Fleetwood Mac songs. And the melody just really caught my attention because uh it lasts throughout whatever time you're gonna listen to it. Like it feels just as current now as probably when it came out, like and but I am working on another cover right now. It's actually this song called The Sign from Ace of Base, which is kind of more of like a 90s deal. But I've also slowed that one down too. That's just kind of my forte apparently. Um, but yeah, I'm probably gonna release that sometime this summer.
Yeah, very cool. Well, yeah, I hope to hear more of that. We try to do some of that stuff as flashback frequencies, and I get a kick out of it. So as much as I'm not into like sequel culture or whatever with movies and stuff, hearing someone cover in a different way another song just scratches as long as I guess it's done well, it scratches an itch that yeah, so keep that up. Actually, kind of off topic, just off of my list though, I'm curious especially as I'm like kind of taking on the singing duties as the lead of our group, if you will, which I love. It's been great, but I don't have like a singing background or anything like that. So a lot of it's been, a couple lessons here and there, and just kind of trying to figure it out slowly. What would you like? What's a piece of advice I guess you would give to yourself that now when you were like a first starting, right? Now that you can kind of look back on everything.
For me, I would definitely say breathing is way more important than I thought it would ever be when I first started.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's so important to breathe correctly and to warm up before you're about to do a performance.
Hmm.
When I first started, I was very much just like, all right, we're gonna wing this and it's gonna be fine, probably. It wasn't much forethought. And now that I'm kind of more seasoned about it, I make sure to warm up at least 5-10 minutes before, and definitely avoid drinking cold water. It's what I've noticed is it kind of like tenses up your muscles. So.
I did a little bit of research. I tried to do some backstory on the artist, and I read about you kind of finding a Casio keyboard in a dusty attic. First of all, I'm wondering if that's real canon or if it's maybe it's just made for Bandcamp lore. But if it's true, why that finding that Casio keyboard in that attic, why that struck such a kind of deep note for you, and how that inspired the whole project that's now over a decade old.
Yeah, so it is actually true. It was my brother's old like dinky Casio keyboard that he kind of left and forgot about in the attic. And I remember pulling it down, and I was maybe like 12 or 13, and I was like, "Oh, like this is really cool." And You know those old keyboards, they have like the built-in songs and the keys light up and stuff, and that's how you can kind of learn how to play, and that's what I did. Um, and I've tried to take piano lessons before, and it doesn't really work for me. I still don't know how to read sheet music. So I don't know much about actual theory and like sight reading and stuff, but I was able to piece together learning the basics myself, and um, yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
I know you've mentioned some of those chillwave pioneers. Do you have any other ones that like come to, mind when it comes to inspiration? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mentioned Washed Out, I mentioned Neon Indian.
Mhm.
Toro Y Moi is another big one.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Causers of This. Man, that's like an incredible album, and I'll never stop listening to it. But yeah, there's that. There's Blackbird, Blackbird. Sun Glitters is another big one for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's so many, and like you mentioned, Passion Pit is a super good one too.
I kind of want to touch on, the beginning of Inner Nature's releases. Oh yeah. Before we get to that though, where did the name come from?
Oh yeah, so I've actually had a couple names. For a long time, my project name was under Fashionista Boyfriend, and eventually, I kind of feel like I grew out of that name. The reason I chose this name is because uh, I love being outside. I love nature, and I love the phrase inner nature. Like, what is your inner nature? Everyone has one. Like, what does that look like to you? Um, and so I felt like it would be a great theme to kind of incorporate like floral stuff and into my designs and my logos, and just kind of really introspective music. So.
How would you, since you brought it to that, how, if you had to sum it up maybe in a couple sentences, how would you describe your own inner nature?
Um, Definitely an introvert. Um, I don't
Okay.
like to be out there too much. But I generally think of myself as like a humble, good person, always trying to take care of others. Um, and in terms of creativity, I like to be as authentic and genuine as I can and not try to fit into any sort of box, in terms of musicality, and just make make music that I know I would love to listen to. I would say now more than ever would be a really important time to use samples, because in the modern age of AI, where it's just eating everything and spitting out garbage, like using samples tastefully, it's really effective. And
Uh-huh.
I make sure to like when I use samples, I make sure to not make it recognizable, at least to the best of my ability, and
Mhm.
to really make it a creative musical decision that's important to the song, you know? Um, and I think it's really important because, I mean, you can give the same sample to 10 different people and you'll get different results likely. Um, and it's just a matter of how you express yourself musically and what parts of a sample will resonate with you, you know. So I think it's definitely important and everyone should try it.
Yeah, I agree. It can't hurt. That was good. I'll have to edit out a little snippet of that and send that out on the airwaves or something. Just
Yeah.
try it. Yeah, give it a shot. I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And obviously, it's not every artist's thing, and for certain projects, it probably wouldn't work. But I think more artists could do that tastefully, like you said. And I'm happy to hear you slam AI for all the crap that it is and creates, and we certainly, on SynthWorld and as well as flashback frequencies. I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to know. Obviously, if someone could nowadays without advance that stuff, he'd be using it and not know it. But at minimum, I won't promote artists that I know are doing that. And because I don't like it, I appreciate with everything the fact that I mean, not only it sounds like you don't use that for your music production, but that you produce everything. I mean, you don't sample drums or anything. I mean, that's really cool. So kudos to you for resisting that nonsense, destroying the arts and so many other things. So not to get super serious there, but I do appreciate the sentiment. And then I had a quote here from you that I want to mention, which was that about this album, which was that you wanted to make music that could easily be mistaken for a track found somewhere in the early MySpace era. So we talked about on some level the kind of what was so awesome and why this was such a golden kind of era of music production. And I would argue kind of the end of the best of not just music production, but like creative arts in general. I hate to say that. I mean, I'd love to see that kind of turn back around, but we've definitely taken a dark turn, not just as a world or a country or whatever, but certainly in how the creative arts are you done and anyway. Um, but so we're going to touch on that, but I do want to ask you, what is it? Is there something maybe from that era of production or music, or even from the zeitgeist, maybe that you wish if you had a magic wand or you're a genie or whatever that you could bring back to this time?
Um, for me, I think it's just the uh the acceptance that things can be not perfect. Like it's okay to be an amateur. It's okay to just throw out a demo if you want, like, and just release it to the world. I think a lot of the time today, people are wanting to be the next best thing. And they just, I'm guilty of this too. Like I'm a big perfectionist, so sometimes my albums can take anywhere from 2 to 3 years to get done. Um,
That's okay
but
though. But yeah.
yeah, you it's your vision and it needs to be the way that you would be happy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a fine line between that and between like I'm never going to release anything because nothing that I hear sounds worthy of being out there. So my message would be like just do it. Just, Nike logo, release it and try again the next time. Um,
Yeah.
that's something that I really appreciated about that time, especially specifically with Neon Indian Psychic Chasms, because I remember when it first came out, a lot of critics were like, "Oh, like this sounds really weird. Like it's all like fuzzy and dirty and like it's kind of a weird sound." And like look now, like everyone is making, something that's similar to that effect. So he was definitely a trendsetter, and I wish that artists would kind of more mainstream artists would go into that. I just think it's harder to find. I don't think that it's not being made. I just think that it's harder to find these days.
So I do also want to touch on your vocals and your lyrics. I love so many of your lyrics. I felt like I didn't get to examine the lyrics as much in Violet Vices, but the song that, really kind of tipped me over the edge, if you will, and to reach out to you was the single you released, I want to say maybe 2 months ago, Forevermore. Just a bunch of really great sentimental lyrics and kind of like just I don't know, just deeper stuff there. Even though it's not the lyrics aren't particularly complicated, but you're touching on some really deep kind of emotional things. But I feel like also the theme of your lyrics in general is kind of dealing with like the emotional gauntlet, if you will, of modern love and relationships and life and stuff like that. And which I can touch on so much the push and pull between like your fears and getting what you want actually in love and relationships, which is I think so many young people can feel. But can you kind of touch on if there's any deeper motivations, experiences, feelings that your kind of lead your heart, if you will, when it comes to writing lyrics?
Yeah, so for me, I have existential dread, as many people do. And for me, an outlet is writing about it. And
Mhm.
that along with, you know, what everyone goes through, relationships, love, loss, that kind of stuff. But I have a line that I wrote in Violet Vices. Um, it goes, I'm starting to wonder if in 15 years we'll be alive, the sea getting warmer, our love will stand the test of time. And I feel like that kind of encompasses everything I just said.
Mhm.
Um, like humanity is a weird thing. There's so many different aspects of it, some that we don't really think about every day. And I like to kind of just touch on that and make people think a little bit more about their lives and people they love. And it's really important.
I agree. I mean, I think your music and your lyrics, I think, remind me of. I feel like it might be the Coldplay music video called Clocks. I think, or that song Clocks. Maybe I'm just not, but there's a bunch of those music videos from the time where they would do a time lapse effect with like people, the world moving around the artist, and the artist would be standing, usually it's like center frame, right? But they're still as the world. I feel like that's where a lot of the lyrics and even some of the just the vibes in general from your music feel to me, which is like you're you're trying to peel back from the haze of that, if you will, and come down to like the real moment and when some yeah, being present, if you will. Um, and I mean that in the best ways, and kind of like not forgetting the humanity in all of that, which is really easy to do. You know what I mean? The modern digital world, as much as I enjoy some of the digital modern stuff we have, it does have this effect of making, I think, humans feel less connected to one another and feeling more robotic and fake and just all of these really unhealthy things. And so that's part of the reason why I hope the pendulum swings back in the other direction again. I believe that's going to happen. I believe the health and wellness movement that is kind of started in the last decade is going to force that to happen in terms of technology and screen time and all of this. At least I'm hopeful for that. But yeah, I just feel like your music does such a great job of feeling human in a fairly inhuman world or unhuman world. So kudos to you for that. And actually, you spotlighted some specific lyrics. I wanted to do the same about your single Forevermore. I just again, if you're listening and you haven't heard that song, hit that up, especially the end. I mean, you added like I think it's a guitar at the very end of the track. It might be a synth, but it just adds this emotional kind of peak to the track itself. A crescendo, I think, is the right way to maybe describe that. It's fantastic. But the lyric on the in the beginning of the chorus, I'm not one to barter what I'd give to call her all those years before. Super simple, right? But I'm wondering what if you would take a second to explain what kind of deeper, maybe personal truth that is behind that.
Yeah. My girlfriend and I actually met. We met in high school, but we didn't start dating until like, very recently. So, I had a crush on her, but I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. And so it's like all these years later, we're talking like 10, 15 years later, um, learning about, what kind of situations and relationships we've both been through since. It's like, oh man, we could have like maybe avoided all that. And there's the other side where it's like, oh man, I was also really like not mature really, and I probably would have totally fumbled. So
Yeah,
it's a
Ghost
lot.
Wander, you remember that lyric, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's all coming together.
Oh, what could have happened. But it's also about acceptance and accepting the current timeline, and that's all you get.
Going through your band camp, as a listener, just, extra kudos, extra points when I find them having a well put together live album in their Bandcamp or just in their catalog in general. Especially like indie electronic artists. Like a lot of these guys in this scene at least avoid the live performance stuff and everything, and I think it's a shame. It's part of the reason why I've tried to, I don't say take the mantle, but just like I'm trying to do what to go the road, the direction I want to go, because I believe this scene deserves someone who's dedicated to promoting it and to, you know, so anyways, I love this thing you did at Sacramento City College. I think it's like 4 or 5 songs from your catalog. And I know you did it with James and Austin. I don't know who those guys are, but I just wanted to ask so you can talk about that. But just want to ask about the experience. Like, what was that like? How did that come together? Did you have to do a bunch of takes to get those right, or were those one-offs? And do you guys, you and these other 2 gentlemen, play together? Are these other bandmates? Do you plan to do stuff like this in the future?
So the live recording we did was actually fairly easy. I'm pretty sure those were all one takes,
Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken. And I'm very familiar with the class that they were doing. So it was basically like they invited bands, local bands to come in, and then the students would record,
Mhm.
get more like, experience with the live recording, with their class. And yeah, it was really nice. It was really chill. And my bassist James and I actually met at Sac City College, so that's how we became friends. Um, our drummer Austin, funnily enough, I actually found on Craigslist like years ago, and you know how that can go. He might get stabbed or something, but no, he's like one of my best friends now, and really cool dude. So it worked out really well.
Yeah, you're
But
still alive.
yeah,
Post,
still alive,
post
and we're still doing
Craigslist.
shows. Yeah,
Um,
we're gonna be doing shows for a long time. We're actually playing our first wedding in a week, so that's pretty cool.
you've got that coming up. You have a wedding. I know also last year, I think it was last year, you got to be a part of Roge Fest. I believe I'm pronouncing that Rogue. I think it's Roge. Which just, you know, such a for the retro scene, just such a like star-studded, lineup there. What was that like? I mean, it just filled to the brim of great talent. What was that like though? Did you get to meet some of those artists? What was it like being kind of welcomed to that scene? Because I feel like you must have felt like, I don't want to say an outsider, but you know, I think your music is certainly, yeah, slightly different than a lot of those stuff that's there, right?
Yeah, I did feel like an outsider a little bit. And that's not to their fault, I'm just not typically really involved much in like online scenes and stuff. I guess I don't really know where to look, but yeah, they reached out to me and they were super stoked and I was stoked and I was so surprised that Windows 96 was ending the show and it was a really, really cool
Mhm.
time. But we were the only band. Everyone else was like a solo act, or like, a DJ or something like that. So it was really cool to be a part of something, even though, we kind of felt a little bit different.
I do want to make sure that SynthWorld listeners who are still here enjoy what they've heard so far on the show, and might check out what you're doing. What can they expect from Inner Nature for the rest of 2026? And also, where can they go to, I guess, maybe find their own Inner Nature?
Sure. So I actually am doing a re-release of the Tonal EP.
Hmm?
Really, really hoping that I can get a vinyl pressing done. I'm already in talks with a couple labels, seeing what we can do there. But in order to promote the new re-release, I'm actually working on a video game to help promote it. It's very simple. It's like a puzzle kind of a thing. You have to kind of walk through 5 floors of this elevator where each floor is like a track from the album. And I have no like previous experience in coding or programming or anything. So it's been a really fun time learning, and it's done, it's finished. Um, so look forward to that. And I have another EP releasing in the fall. So a lot of stuff in the works there. You can find me on my website at innernature.in, or you can follow me. My handle is innernature.wave on Instagram. And yeah, you can find me anywhere.